Welcome to episode 12 of the Science of Advertising Show. This is the Christmas edition. We'll be looking at the latest work from Coca Cola and exploring why, a decade ago, the ad from Coke was one of the most famous Christmas commercials of all time. We'll also be comparing the retail giants of David Jones and Big W, their latest works that have just hit the airwaves, and why they do or don't work. This is the Science of Advertising Show, the show where we talk all things neuroscience, advertising, and effective communication. The show where we disclose the advertising secrets that brands use to influence and persuade human behavior. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button below so you can stay up to date with all our content. Remember, you can also find the audio version of all of our shows on all major podcasting platforms. On today's show, we have Dr. Cooney Horvath, the preeminent expert in the field of educational neuroscience with a focus on memory formation, learning, and attention. And your host, Jonathan Rolley. We have got some crackers today. We have got the famous ad from Coca Cola. This was back in 2010. We'll be reviewing that as our classic. Then we've also got the latest from Coke. We're going to have a look at what they've just produced. And then it wouldn't be Christmas without retail. David Jones, Big W. Compare the pair. Which one of these retailers crushed it, did well, did okay, or anywhere in between? We'll be reviewing David Jones, Big W. But right now.
Wait a second. I just want to point out, I noticed your cracker quip. A couple of crackers is in a Christmas cracker.
Did you like that?
By the way, now here's another way. David Jones versus Big W. Who's going to get good stuff in their stocking and who's going to get coal? See what I did? I'm just going to make everything is just going to come right back to Christmas themes.
Not as good, but let's have a look at it right now. The latest from Coca Cola. Over to you, Jake. There we have it, the latest from Coke. I will take this one straight out of the gates.
It's yours.
So there might be a bit of a theme today that we may pick up. The theme may be Christmas or the theme may be storytelling. So why does your brain love storytelling? Storytelling can change our attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. But Coke, this is playing on the ad that was released 10 years ago, which was the big Coke truck that came through, and it had the magical Christmas music and everything else in between. And this is the latest reiteration of that. So the one thing about this ad that it delivers in full in terms of story arcs. It creates tension, which holds your attention. And as you've got tension and it builds and it feels like the character's making progress, he gets knocked back. He makes progress and he gets knocked back again. And he makes progress all the way to Santa's door and he gets the final knockback. He can't deliver. He orders letter to Santa for Christmas. And then the magical Coke truck comes, picks him up, saves him, takes him back to the family and delivers in full. So it's a really emotional and I love the ad. I probably don't like it as much as the original because it's a bit of a take on it, but it had all the elements of a great story. The one thing Coke have always done is they've always delivered on the emotion. You've always felt something when you watch their creatives, and they make you feel something with this creative as well. And the one hero of this is really the music. I would suggest if you shut the visuals off and you just listen to the music, you could literally pick up on the story and what's going on. Music has a wonderful way of really bringing to the forefront of emotion. But look, love the latest from Coke. Very good at telling stories, these individuals, but more so, they are great at embedding emotion. Jared, what did you think?
Would not disagree with you more. This is one of the worst ads. Now, I'm gonna put a little disclaimer out there at the beginning. I hate Christmas ads. Full stop.
Oh, so you're biased.
I am kind of biased, but think about why I'm biased is the entire point of an advertisement is to bring people into your group, to your brand, to your product, whatever it is you're doing. The entire purpose of Christmas advertisements is to somehow step sideways from that and tell people, hey, family's the most important thing. But by the way, here's our name as well. Don't forget, we still exist. Christmas is at odds with typical advertising. So when the two come together, it's like this just mishmash where nothing really makes sense anymore, and it rarely works. And I think this is a perfect example of something that doesn't work. You're spot on. In terms of production value, beautiful, brilliant. In terms of narrative, yeah, that's wonderful. But you got to remember, narrative isn't that hard to do. Twilight was a narrative. That did a wonderful job of a narrative, but it is a horrible story. So just because they hit the beats of a narrative, now you have to ask, okay, what is the story you're telling? And in order for a story to be effective, it has to have what's called internal consistency, which means the world has to hold together. The rules that start at the beginning have to continue to make sense and impact actions at the end. This is why sci-fi works. Good sci-fi, internal consistency. Doesn't matter that you're on Pluto and that there's aliens and stuff. So long as the rules hold true throughout, you now have yourself a decent story. Here, there is zero internal consistency. Let's just think about this. Daughter gives dad a card for Santa. So we can assume you ain't writing a card for Santa unless it's already December. So we're at max 3 weeks away from Christmas. Dad now disappears. And what does he do? Somehow in those 3 weeks, he hikes the Himalayas. He builds a shelter on an house, swims across, traverses the entirety of the Atlantic Ocean to go way up north. There's no internal consistency. And so what ends up happening is you look at this guy and you don't feel on his side. You're not enamored with him. You just think this guy is a bit of an idiot. But magically, hey, at the end of the day, when he finally meets Santa and it's Christmas. So all of that was supposed to happen in 3 weeks. It's just so poor. Now let's go with the emotional. Yes, the music, beautiful. The emotion, heavy. There's a difference between drama and melodrama. Once the audience knows exactly what emotion you are trying to elicit from day dot, then we can either predict it or throw it away. There's no change in emotion. So let's pull it back. Two things now from the science that we got to pull in. One, narrative works by tying together. The brain thinks in narrative. So anytime you have a narrative, you can make an easier memory. Cool. Problem is, in this narrative, there's almost no tie, except for the truck at the end, to the company itself. So I'm going to have a great narrative, a great story of a guy going back home to Christmas to his daughter that tells me absolutely nothing about your brand, and I don't care. So you've given me a good memory that doesn't draw me to you. You played the game, wonderful, out. The second is emotions only work when we do emotional swings, when people move between emotions. That's when you get an ARC protein blast. That's when you get a deeper memory in your brain for whatever just happened. So sadness only works when it's preceded by nothingness or something opposing sadness. This ad starts from sadness. You know the dad is leaving, the daughter's saying goodbye to him, so we start with sad. We move through sad. We end with sad. The whole thing was just so melodramatically sad that I didn't.
Does it end with sad?
It ends with corny. It ends with, I suppose it ends with happiness when he opens the letter and it was for him, but it's like a nostalgic, sad happiness. It's not a cute, it's not like a, hey, good reunion. It's a, oh, fuck you. I don't know. I'm sorry. I find it.
I don't know. I think you might be a little bit jilted by Christmas, or there's something going on there for yourself.
I love Christmas. I just hate being pandered to. And this ad is the biggest pandering job I've ever seen. It's, oh, look how good we are. No, you want to be honest.
I wasn't going to touch on this until the next one, but who do you think this ad was built for? Or designed to engage?
Little girls.
Kids.
Who want their parents to come home for Christmas? It certainly wasn't built for me. Parents who miss their kids.
There's probably an element of parents, and there's definitely for children. If you look at Nike, Nike, I'll touch in a minute. But if you're looking at Coke, what's Coke's overarching? What emotions do Coke want to own?
Joy, summer, fun, happiness.
Happiness. Absolutely happiness. So, like throughout it, they're trying to tell this narrative of young girl, lost her dad, dad's on this epic journey, goes through it, comes back home, and they're united. So Coke unites family, and you can see that's how the overarching story has been created. Because at the heart of Coke and throughout their creatives throughout history, it's always been Coke brings people together, and it makes you feel happy.
Okay. So bringing these two people together, one, I'm bringing an idiot together with his much smarter daughter, which already turns me off. It's like, why does every adult have to be an idiot? Two, let's get some internal consistency. Let's say you fell off of presumably he was working on an oil rig. You fell off of an oil rig. There's now going to be a search party. The entire world is going to be talking about this guy who just got lost. So now not only are we reuniting these two, but we're doing it at the expense of the thousands of families who had to be ununited to go find this jabroni. And then, I'm sorry, we couldn't find him. He's dead. And then what does he do? He just goes, oh, no, I'm still here. I just wanted to go up to the North Pole. It was the worst. There is nothing about this ad that now think about this too. It's a 2.5 minute ad. Yeah. You need that 2.5 minutes to have your arc. I can see a shorter version, but you're not going to have 2.5 minutes on TV. You turn this into a 30-second ad.
Doesn't work.
It's just going to be a play on itself.
No, it doesn't work at all. And we've seen it time and time and again. We've actually run a lot of like historically longer form was usually 2 minutes. And then it's got 90 seconds and 60 seconds. And a lot of it's trying to now be 15 and 30 seconds. We have seen time and time again, minimum 90 seconds. You need a minute and a half to really tell an individual story for the audience to connect. As soon as you trim it back to about 60, response rates really drop, and response rates and memory are usually pretty closely tied together. Look, I'll nearly throw this to the audience. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think this is a great ad, a good ad, or if you're following Dr. Jared, do you think this makes you feel unwell with the
whole world? With
the whole world, the Grinch. Are you aligned with the Grinch? Or
please comment on this, because I think you and I are torn, and I would love to hear, how the audience thinks about this.
I think it's a good ad. I think it's a nice follow-on, and where I think it's a good ad is it nearly makes you think of the other Christmas truck, which was Coke, and they've kind of tied that into the whole theme going, that was a brilliant ad. Like the initial Coke ad 10 years ago, brilliant ad, which we'll dig into for a lot of different reasons. It doesn't have the story arc. Like it's brilliant for other reasons, and quite a famous ad. And I think they're trying to go 10 years on. How do we really live that? How do we bring that memory back out in people? How do we get the Coke truck?
Can I bring one last, and I love it. And I think you're absolutely right. The Coke truck is memorable. That is like the sign that it's Christmas. When you see the Coke truck on a commercial, congratulations, start playing the songs in the stores. It's time. So that's awesome. But I just think this is a horrible use of it. And I do want to point out too, you cannot remove an ad from its context. And right now, the context, you cannot deny it, is COVID around the world. And it's that in the United States, where this ad is going to play the most people are going to be either locked down or separated from their families. So what you're doing now is you're bringing in an ad that's all about unity, separation into unity. And a lot of people who are going to watch it can't be unified with their families. So rather than finding another way to tell unity in a story that matches our current milieu, our current context, you brought in an old way to show unity. And that's going to, I fear, going to alienate. I mean, it's Coke. They're never going to go anywhere. This isn't even going to make a dent. But it's going to make a lot of people who can't get out of the house quite angry to say, well, dang, that's not my experience of Christmas this year.
Yeah. Anyone that's listening, anyone that's watching this, please, how did this ad make you feel? Did you feel a little bit happy, a little bit joyous at the end? Because I got a little bit of that, but obviously Jared didn't. Look, but I agree. It's a very fake plastic story that doesn't have much believability. But if you tap into your inner child, you kind of go on the adventure and you go along the journey. But maybe I've just watched a little bit too many Disney episodes over. Or right now with my 2-year-old twins, I'm watching far too much Disney. But yeah, love to hear your thoughts because, you know, one interesting thing that Coke has always done very successfully has really tapped into the emotion and left you feeling a certain way whenever you've watched, you know, individuals jumping off, you know, this summer feel, the summer vibe. You feel great. And it's like whenever you finish watching a James Bond film and he's just finished saving the world, you walk out of the cinema with this feeling that you've got this sense of dominance or this feeling of dominance that carries on from what you've just experienced. So like, I'm super keen to hear everyone's thoughts because I think there is a bit of a tie here. So good ad, bad ad, great ad. Love to hear your thoughts.
Can I throw another option? Just one last option for Coke out there.
Shoot.
All these Christmas ads do nothing but try and say, and we're going to see this with Big W here in a second. All these Christmas ads do nothing but say, look, we care about the community. I imagine that this advertisement for Coke cost well over $1 million. I mean, we're clearing probably 2, 3, 4. It was even higher. This is bad. It was a real high production ad. You really care about the community? Give that money to the people who need it during this time of the year, during COVID time, during lockdown time, during people who don't have homes, don't have families. Don't tell me you care about my community. Invest it in my community, and then give me a 30-second ad that says, just shows the truck and says, you know what? This year, instead of making a high-class ad, we decided to donate money to help find a vaccine for COVID so that everyone could get together this year. Coca Cola cares about you. Don't tell me you care and then clearly blow your money on something that has nothing to do with the community. Invest it in the community. Live that, or don't. If you just want to make money, cool. Bring your ad more, make it more about Coke, less about trying to lie to me and tugging my heartstrings. I'm sorry. This just makes me mad.
It does. Look at him go. Speaking of Big W, we have Compare the Pair. These are 2 ads that have just been released from Australian brick and mortar retail operations. So we have Big W and David Jones. Let's have a look at what they've just put out to market.
Christmas just like years ago.
Wow, it's the late party. Let's go.
Happy faces all aglow. With presents for giving, the city starts singing. While sleigh bells near ringing, it feels like Christmas time is almost here.
Dad's the captain of the fire brigade, so the fire season starts and Dad has to immediately go out the door.
If there's a fire anywhere in the state, our brigade could be called up. They could go away for 3 days, 5 days. Anything that we've got planned just goes out the door.
Mal's the captain of the local RFS and he was away a lot. They just missed out on Christmas lights completely last year.
It was a weird Christmas, that one.
Yeah, Christmas can absolutely be bittersweet because it's Christmas season, it's fire season, and you want to be there to participate in Christmas and have that time together. And yet there are people who are in far greater need. It's one of those things that's sort of stuck in the back of my mind. Yeah, every time I go away, yeah, what could happen?
This is a massive Christmas light street. Everyone participates, everyone gets involved. Jack and Aaron missed out last year. It'd be good to see them all out here celebrating.
I think it's incredibly special that Jack wants to surprise his family like this. I've known him since he was born. He has a real connection with people and he understands how people feel.
What we're looking forward to this Christmas is being around so we can do the lights again as a family.
Jack will be totally surprised when he turns up to see just what he has set in motion.
Quick, we've only got 10 minutes.
Turn the lights off, guys, they're here.
Look at that.
Oh, wow.
Oh my
God.
goodness.
Dear Aaron, Mal, Michelle, and of course Jack.
Oh my goodness.
We hope these lights and gifts will brighten up your Christmas. Love your friends, neighbours, and Big W. Bring on Christmas.
There we have it, Big W, David Jones. Dr. J, since you're on a Christmas rant, and I feel like do you know what I feel like?
What?
I feel like I've just tossed up the ball nicely and it's just sitting there and you're just ready to literally just knock this thing out of the park because we've already just established that you don't like Christmas advertising at all. And we have two ads here that I think are just right up your alley to have a rant.
It's funny. I was thinking about this when I was watching these earlier. Is typically with a compare the pair, one is going to come out clearly on the top, and in this one, I think one is better. But have we ever had a compare the pair where they both just bombed? Where I would say neither of them did it better because neither of them had a reason for doing what they were just doing. Now, with that said, I do think one is slightly better. So let's just start with Big W. What interesting about the Big W is it's essentially the same story as the Coke one. What they're doing is they're building a narrative. They're bringing you a family that has largely been disconnected during this time of year because of circumstances, and they're showing that, hey, we're going to bring them together. We're going to give them a moment of joy, and we are a part of the celebration community. Hooray. What I liked about this ad was it wasn't $5 million. This clearly was filmed with normal cameras. This wouldn't have cost all too much. So I give them credit for that, for saying when we reach out to the community, we're not just going to show it, we're going to go do it. It's just so damn sappy and it has nothing to do with Big W. This is where I just keep coming. Christmas, although Christmas is very much about shopping, it doesn't align with your brand. You tell the Christmas stories are all very generic. There's only 10 things you can do when it comes to Christmas. And almost all of those generic tales have nothing to do with Big W or Coke or any advertisement. It's just not the same thing. So whereas I think I applaud the execution, I love the idea, I love the giving back to community, I just don't see what this had to do with Big W. And I don't think anyone's going to leave that commercial thinking, boy, I got to go shop at Big W. So as an advertisement, as a story, cool, but we already got 1 million of these stories. I don't need more of this stuff. Stop pandering to me. The other one, the David Jones one, they did better in that they've perennially been linked to Christmas. David Jones and Myers have their window displays, and it's become a thing where every year you have to go downtown and look at these. So they have a direct tie to Christmas. Our windows are where you figure out what it is you need to buy or get for Christmas. Cool. So I did like this ad in the sense that it took us through the years of David Jones and how long they've been doing this and and they kept the window the whole time. So they were clearly saying window display, Christmas, cool. Where this one fell short is that the window displays in Australia, although David Jones does them, are largely owned by, and most people think of, Myers, their direct competitor. When you think of Christmas window display, your first thought is Myers. This ad didn't say David Jones until the very end. So the whole time I'm watching it, it took me about 15 seconds to get what was going on. I'm like, oh, window display through the years. This is a Myers ad. In the end, when they came up with David Jones, I had to pick up my phone and go, do they make Christmas displays? And I had to look, and of course they do. I just wouldn't know because Christmas display tied to Myers. So they picked a theme that unfortunately led me down a different path that activates my memories for something else. Now, this can be beneficial because what happens in the end, you get a prediction break. I'm thinking Meyer. All of a sudden I see David Jones. Now my memory for Christmas displays includes David Jones because I had this moment. So in that sense, it worked well. But in another sense, I don't know how many people are going to stick around long enough to make sure it's David Jones without first just assuming it's Myers turning off and then you just advertise for somebody else. Oops.
Very interesting.
Where do you sit on this? You're going to be like, I loved them both.
Look, I actually, we had the team scroll through and trying to find great Christmas ads. We just couldn't. This is kind of as good as it got, or as close as we could. Like, I think they're both. I actually really don't like the David Jones ad. Like, if you look at how to tell a story, it was bland. It was like there was no real emotion to it. There was no hero. There was no characters that you could really align with or connect with. And I think great story has characters that you can really build that relationship with and literally live their life and feel like you're living that as your own story. Yeah. And there was just none of that. Like, you just couldn't connect with it. It was a window and you got the window, and then it was only right at the end of David Jones. And one question for you, because this is whether I was searching it and now it's a memory of mine because I was going through the process, or do you recall it from the ad? How many years has David Jones been in existence?
If I had to guess from the ad, it would be from the 60s or 50s. Seem to be as far back as they go. So maybe the 50s.
182 years. So that was the hero of it. They were trying to tell their 182-year journey.
Oh, I did not get that.
So that was interesting because that's the one thing that stuck with me, 182 years, David Jones, but that's only because I've gone through the process of searching for ads. So that's interesting right there. Big W. So they've also tried to hero the firefighters from last year and create that. But the bridge to Big W, it has nothing to do about Big W, why Big W is amazing. And they've tried to demonstrate their product and seed Big W through the messaging. And they've even got a Big W truck trying to rip off Coke. But yeah, look, I think they were both quite poor executions. And the challenge with Christmas that it is Christmas, there's so many other connections and emotions to Christmas. For a brand to actually hijack Christmas is very, very hard to do. Yeah. And again, I think Coke going back 10 years ago did a reasonable job of it, but in the latest execution, they don't hijack Christmas or anything else in between. So the one question I have for you, because I think this becomes a really interesting conversation. Why do brands get so obsessive about creating a Christmas ad?
Why would you? I think it's almost what you were talking about. I'd love to hear your thought on this. Is because everyone is feeling good, you now want your ad to be targeted or thought of when people are in a good mood. The idea being that Christmas makes you happy. If you can think of my ad while you're happy, you're going to bring that happiness back to my company the remaining 11 days of the year. The big joke, though, and I could be wrong. I'd be happy for someone else to tell me. Do you have another idea of why they?
I absolutely do, and I think it's a very selfish endeavor from both brand, but more so from agency. So you look at David Jones and Christmas; it's a peak time in retail spend.
Yeah.
So peak time in retail, we need to go hard, we need to be bold, and we need to be out there so everyone's knowing who we are. So there's justification behind it. And because there's justification, you can justify a bigger investment into the one big creative ad of the year. So all of a sudden you've got creative directors that get so excited. I now get to tell an amazing story that may not have to deliver all the brand communication. We can go a little bit crazy or a little bit, and this is where the creative directors and brands nearly try and turn into pseudo movie directors.
Yeah.
And they're fulfilling their own their own needs of trying to tell an amazing story and having a bit of art rather than having an effective piece of communication that consumers will really connect with. So like this is probably the one thing and why I struggle to find great Christmas creative, because you've got brands and creative directors taking in their own direction they want, and it's not necessarily about the consumer.
So the idea becomes that it's more about the art, less about the product.
Well, you look at both of them. There was a 60-second clip from David Jones that had 1.5 second clip of the brand at the end.
Yeah.
No one's going to recall. If anything, just does good things for Maya. Not well thought out at all. Big W, cool. There's a family, told a story about the bushfires, the house renovation, and all the rest of it. It's nearly like a mini home renovation, home rescue, little emotional story piece. Do you really remember Big W or not? Why are you going to go to Big W this Christmas? Is because their depth of product, their range, they've got amazing Christmas, like whatever it is, it doesn't tell any of that. It's more just a brand message.
I would say, if you come in the other side, then I'd say the best Christmas ad I've seen then is Bunnings. Why? Because they do exactly the same things they always do. All they do is add a little Santa hat on the top. And the idea is, here is the product, here is the price, and it's even lower because it's Christmas time. Come and buy that product now. There you go. I mean, you don't lie to me. Don't pretend you're my friend on my TV. If you know this is peak sales time, sell something. Tell me why I should come into your store, because I can get Big W. I can get Uno for $2 cheaper than I can anywhere else. Tell me that and I'll go buy it.
But you look at Bunnings, they're thriving. Bunnings continue to thrive and grow year on year. David Jones, what's been their story for the last decade? They're still lucky to be in existence and probably won't be in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
John Lewis over in the UK, I remember John Lewis, they always produce a really big, expensive Christmas ad. 2 years ago, they had Elton John. It was a brilliant piece of short storytelling. Literally told Elton's story from a young boy all the way through to him, then tied it to John Lewis at the end. John Lewis is like a David Jones type of retailer in the UK, but it's super story-based, really expensive, amazing production value. It really makes you feel something, like it really does, because it's got Elton's music and it tells his story all the way through. But you don't remember John Lewis. Like, is that going to help drive foot traffic into that location for Christmas? No. Is it a nice, feel-good bit of IP for Elton John? Absolutely. It'll do great things for his brand. And I think we've discussed it several times.
So this is what we get. If it's an end of year cash extravaganza where it's like, hey, we've got to meet a quota. We still have $2 million in the kitty. Let's donate that. That's where you say, look, if you really want to demonstrate that, look, we're just here to help the world, to be a part of your community. Don't use those. Don't pay Elton John however much money he got paid to tell you that story. Give that to people who need it. And then have a small commercial that says, here's our products. We just donated $2 million. If you like it, donate to this charity as well, or whatever the heck it's going to be.
I tell you what, that would cut through rather than a lot of the noise and garbage that comes around Christmas time for ads. But that's also like a lot of these brands, and the way they'll justify it is there's a lot of people promoting price product or product price promotions for Christmas. Let's go out there and tell a different story and try and be a bit different. But look, I don't want to sound like the Grinch, and we probably are, but
I just don't like Christmas commercial. I'll point this out too. Let's go back. Let's assume companies or brands just care about the happiness of the holiday season. What they fail to realize is it's not a really happy season. Anywhere between 50 and 80% of people report increased levels of stress during the holiday season, and 40 to 60 report some form of heavier form of depression. This isn't, we want it to be. Hallmark loves this time of year, but in reality, it's not a really happy time of year for people, because a lot of people are either alone or they get too stressed out because of family. They can't do what they want to do. They do what they have to do. So even if you're just saying, well, look, I just want my brand to pop up when people are feeling good, target them during summer, because right now they ain't feeling great. Well, not everyone is. And the few that are probably don't care about your ad. So I don't know. I've never seen the point of this time of year other than give me your price point. Are you looking for jewelry for your wife? Here's a cheap piece of jewelry.
Let's look at that, because let's look at Bottles of Happiness right now with Coke, and let's review 2010 Bottles of Happiness. Classic creative. Over to you, Jake.
It's time for a blast from the past.
Little bottles of happiness everywhere. Coca Cola unites people and families. Dr. J, like this is a classic creative. This is a very memorable piece. I know we've just had a rant about how much we dislike Christmas creatives, but this one, like,
what did it do? It didn't pull your heartstrings. It didn't try and trick you into feeling any emotion. It didn't give you 2.5 minutes of pay attention to this guy traversing. What did it do? It gave you a nice short form ad with acoustic encoding. You have a jingle that everyone still remembers to this day. The name Coca Cola in the truck were everywhere in that ad. It wasn't a 1-second feature at the end. It was the ad. You loved running with the little kid through it all. And I think this was also the first year, and I could be wrong, maybe you'd know this, that Coke was allowed to actually use Santa as a spokesperson. So you were also able to bring with your brand in just the most recognizable thing from this season. So they didn't try hard. They didn't go over the top. They just kept it a simple Coke commercial as it always is.
Yeah, there's the long version of it as well that's just over 2 minutes, and then there's a cut down version that I use for TVC and other bits and pieces. But the real reason I believe this is successful, because it's more like a music clip than it is an ad. Like, this song is great. It's got all the things. As soon as you stop listening to it, you're still humming the jingle and the tune afterwards. And as soon as you start humming, you're kind of gone. You've gone down this. It's in there and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And as soon as you got the hum, then you start thinking of this truck that's driving through, and it's literally the Coca-Cola truck that's lit up in lights. But like, that's why I believe this is really successful, because it literally is like a music clip. It's a Christmas music clip. It makes you feel warm and happy, and it ties their little bottles of happiness to that. And again, it's not overcomplicating it. It just is.
And a good piece of art direction too is a lot of things are dark, but what's always bright is the truck. The truck is the light that cuts through the otherwise, and I don't want to say gloom because it's not gloom, but the twilight of the season. So anytime you see the truck, it is the brightest thing. It is shining the light that makes everyone feel good. You're spot on. It's a good piece of creative in that it's simple, it's catchy as hell, and that's memory. Memory deepens the more you access it. When you get a jingle in your head, every time you hum it, that memory gets deeper and it gets a little stronger for you. So long as we keep saying, holidays are coming, holidays are coming, they already won this game. And they didn't. This is why it's you know what it is, and I think I just got it. This ad versus their new ad is like Die Hard versus Die Hard 2. Or I'm trying to think of another one. They were all so bad. Anytime in the 80s, they'd have a good film and everyone loved it. They'd make a sequel and they would do the exact same movie, just bigger. That's what these two commercials feel like to me. It's like, hey, we had a good ad. Let's do more of exactly the same, but bigger, and people will love it even more. No, Die Hard 2 sucked. Your second ad sucked because you didn't quite get what we liked about the original. It wasn't that it was over the top and I had this huge adventure. It was that it was so dang simple and I hadn't thought in those terms before. So I think they hit sequelitis with this. Now, granted, it's 10 years later, but
you're spot on. And the reason it's sequelitis because it works so well. How do we actually try and refresh some of those memories that we built 10 years ago, which was the truck, which is the icon? How do we have a story that brings the truck in? Like it's a bit of a long stretch to make the truck come into Santa's house, but it was kind of a nice play at the end with Santa driving the truck. I didn't expect that. And I'm like, oh, well played.
At the end of which one? The first one or the second one?
Didn't you see Santa?
No, Santa drives the truck in the 2010 one.
Yeah, he drives the truck in the 2021.
Oh, I thought we were just meant to assume he did. I never looked at I was too out of it at that point. I just didn't care. I assumed it was him driving the truck.
I don't think you watched all the way through.
I did. I saw the glove. The glove came down, but I didn't see his face. But I think it was an assumption that he was driving it.
The daughter just wanted, I just want my dad for Christmas. And there she is. And the daughter got her wish and amazing. And everyone feels warm and happy. And then Santa drives off and winks at the camera going, Merry Christmas, thanks to Coke.
Oh, no. Oh, if he winks at the very end, no, I stopped watching at the very end. Once I saw him open the letter and I'm like, this is enough for me. But it's because I'm too grinchy. But that's, doesn't that bother you? All I want for Christmas is my father to come home. He would have been home 2 weeks ago. If you wouldn't have given him this silly letter and we went on this stupid adventure, it wasn't that he wasn't going to come home.
You're so much of a scientist. You're so rational and you're really just trying. You're not falling in love with a story like a Disney movie. Mate, you could watch millions of Disney movies and you're pulling apart going, that'll never happen. Oh, why would they do that?
That's why I've always said, look, this isn't Citizen Kane, but that's how all Disney and Pixar to me has always been super simplistic. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a fresh idea. The one where they had the emotions in the head, what was that one called? Inside Out?
Can't remember.
Oh, Jake, do you remember Inside Out? Boom, there you go. That was good because it's the same exact, every Pixar and Disney film is identical. It is the exact same thing. All they do is they put a different coat on one of the side characters and it's different. Finding Nemo is exactly the same story as Toy Story. They're all the same. When you get something like Up or Inside Out, it's the same story, but done in a new way. And you go, hey, you know what? I haven't thought about it in those terms. Cool. This wasn't done in a new way. There's nothing fresh about it. It's the exact same. McDonald's did this commercial 20 years ago. I don't care anymore. And the fact that you got Santa Claus winking at me, I'm sorry. I know I sound like a Grinch. That does nothing for me. I don't care.
Kids, if you're out there listening, Jared does like Christmas. He really does. And he loves Santa.
I
It's
love
not in the Coke
Santa.
commercial, but emotional branding. So if you look at what's successful really with the 2010 version of Coke, it makes you feel something, like you feel a little bit up and about, you feel festive. That is emotional branding.
Yeah.
You feel an emotion and you attach your brand to that emotion. So this is like Nike. Nike never talks about the quality of their shoes or their designs. Their ads are focused on the emotion. The emotion of you feeling like when you're running, like it's victory, it's success, it's self-improvement. That is what Nike wants you to own. Like it's literally, I've got this feeling now, I'm charged up. I want to go run a half marathon because you've got me to that space. Like you're motivated, you're charged. Like that is emotional branding. And if you're looking at two brands that have done that incredibly well throughout history, it is Coke and they've owned happiness.
Yeah.
And you've got Nike, which really owns victory, success, self-improvement.
Effort, work, yeah. And I totally buy that. How do they do it? They do it a lot, frequently, good music, always good music. The ad, like the Nike ads are always, I'm close up on shoes, I'm close up on sweat, people are heavy breathing. Coke ads are always, you see the sun, you see the glistening drink, you see people smiling. Give me a bunch of short 30-second ads that give me a feeling and tie it to your brand. Give me that any day over a 2.5 minute ad that you try and tell a story that makes no sense.
And the interesting thing is, if you're looking at Nike and if you're looking at Coke, they really don't have much of a story to tell. Like it's an FMCG product. There's really not a lot to it, but they embed the emotion to it. Yeah. If you're looking at a Big W, if you're looking at like a David Jones, like they've got such a depth of catalog, they could actually help tell the story or take the narrative in a different direction. There's so many different ways you could go. But with the FMCG world, it is the emotion that you feel when you grab that bottle out of the fridge or you unwrapping that new pair of shoes. You feel like you're a warrior about to go out and you feel good. And the other thing a lot of these brands do is they look at celebrity anchors or they look at people that already are proven in this area to leverage as well. And that's a completely different strategy as well to get the social proof that sits there. But, you know, if you are looking at emotional branding, and I'd encourage anyone that's listening to this as well, think about the emotions your customers have when they engage with your brand. What emotions do they have when they talk to the receptionist, the call center? Like this is all part of the experience, and that'll be what they remember more so than anything else, is how you made them feel.
And here you can start to say too, a lot of people will be worried and say, well, we all want our customers to feel happy. Well, dig a little deeper, because it's true. We want everyone to feel good, but not every company's primary emotion is going to be joy. So for instance, I work in education. The emotion that I want is one of effort and success and struggle, cognitive growth, which means I want you thinking, I want you working. So how do I tie that to my brand? If I had an education brand, I don't. But you see, the point is, it's not just about feeling good. Get specific. What is it that you want to own that aligns with your brand?
Totally. But with you, yes, there's work, there's effort. That's one part of it. If you go the cascade, what happens on the back end of that when you have a breakthrough? You've just learned something. There's very much
that ah moment, that sense of agency and pride. And the joke is there joy attached to that? Absolutely, but it's not the same type of joy as a Coca Cola. I don't want you jumping around smiling in the summer. I want you almost more like the night to feel as though you've just earned something and now you have a little more ownership. So that's now we're getting nuance. We're moving from basic emotions into specific feelings. What is the nuanced feeling you're going for, and can you somehow build that in?
It's really interesting because, you know, we very much are obsessive with growth, and growth only comes through literally pain. It's grit, it's pushing through, it's finding it like really hard at the time, but at the end of it, you just come out with a result and you're just like, wow, that was extraordinary, but it wasn't easy. Same with Nike. Like, it is victory, success, self-improvement. They know beating down the track and just like foot stride after stride, like that's not comfortable. But that's where the growth is. That's where the reward is. And let's literally just praise these athletes for pushing through all sorts of level of discomfort. Like, just do it, get it done. But Dr. J, I do wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Oh, geez. Hey, you know what? Can I do a fix this ad segment real fast?
Let's do it.
Let's go back to that David Jones, because I've just been thinking, how do we fix this? You brought up the 182 years. That was clearly what they were going for. I missed it. Check this out. Right now, the camera is on the inside of the store, so you never see the name, and when you do, it's backwards, so you can't really read it. Let's flip it. Let's take the camera to the outside of the store. So the entire time, we see the name David Jones from square one to square dot, whatever the heck it is, however it ends. What we do is it's 182 years. The camera, the entire commercial is just the camera slowly pushing into that window over a 30-second, 1 minute time. In that time, David Jones's name is always there. And what we do is we go the 182 years. So maybe the font changes as we go through the 182 years. Maybe the things behind it are quickly flitting in and out. The people who are passing by are quickly fitting in and out. And we go from maybe black and white into color over those 182 years. And maybe you tick those 182 years over here. In this way, you've got the same basic ad, where what we're doing is we're showing you we've been around for ages. Now we don't need a character. The name is the character, and all the people flitting in and out are fine. They're just secondary characters. The objects, we're showing you all the different things you can buy. They keep popping up in the background, changing each year, each generation, but the name is static. So when the world is, for 30 seconds now, you've done nothing but look at David Jones, and now the message gets across. We've been here for 182 years, and when it finally gets close enough, it stops, and we see a tech thing from 2020, and a young kid picks it up and says, from behind the window, and says, this is what I want. Ladies and gentlemen, we just solved your problem. Now you've got your brand. No one's confusing you with Myers, and you get to tell your 182-year story as you just tried to do.
David Jones, if you want that idea next year, Jared, he's about $1 million just for the concept, just so you know.
That's it. I'm going to put a little R next to it.
Yeah, a little.
But do you think that makes a little bit more sense? Like that kind of, now I see what you're trying to do with this commercial.
If you're looking at commercials, like there's got to be a hero in it. The hero is either a character or it's the brand. And in that ad, there's no hero.
Yeah, there's nothing. You don't even know. I think what they tried to do was they tried to have the same people in the background getting older, but I didn't catch it. And if the point is 182 years, you can't really do that story, because unless you bring someone by in a hearse and say, oh, well, it's still here. No, it's so.
But the challenge with advertising,
secondary.
And I'll go on a bit of a rant here. The challenge with advertising and brands is the brand is so important to the brand. Consumers don't give a shit. Like, their attention's fleeting. They've got much better things to do than trying to figure out what your story is within your brand. It needs to be overt. It needs to be obvious, but it needs to be something that's really simple that they get and they can recall. They shouldn't have, if anyone has to think about the ad to try and pull the story together, it's a bad ad.
No one cares more about your brand than you.
Correct.
You know what you get is you get the magician problem. So we, in academia, we call it the problem with expertise. Once you know a field too well, it becomes almost impossible for you to teach that field, because you can't think like a novice anymore. You can't remember what it was like to be new. So you're always talking up here and all the newbies are going, what the hell are you? That's why university is so hard. Most of the professors are so well versed that when you come in as a new student, you're like, I have no passion because I can't understand anything you're saying anymore. And they lose. So now take it into the world of magicians. Magicians know so much about magic that they always say, whenever they develop a new act, the final step they have to do is they say, we have to explicitly pretend we're in the audience. And we have to now step back, go sit in the crowd and watch it as best as we can with fresh eyes and say, we don't know how magic works. So we're no longer enamored with knowing what goes on behind the scenes. What am I feeling as a newbie when I don't know the ins and outs? And typically what they'll find is their tricks suck because they're really good for expert magicians who know exactly what's happening. They're really shitty for people who don't have a deeper understanding and just want to see things appear and disappear. That's the same things with brands. You've got to pull yourself out of your own expertise in it and say, what would a newbie actually be thinking, feeling in this moment?
It sounds like the great trait with great, call it teachers or great marketers or great advertisers, is they've got this skill or ability to put themselves in the shoes of the customer, the audience, or the student, and going, what is their experience and what do they want to walk away with? Whereas too many marketers, too many creatives, too many advertisers neglect the customer, and it's about their own, I want to create this, I think we should do this. And it becomes their own narrative, and they exclude the thing that they're trying to achieve is to impart either a memory, a feeling, a learning, and that becomes a disconnect. And I think that's where ego really creeps into any industry, that it's about me and my journey rather than it has nothing to do about me. How do we impart the emotion, the memory, the learning?
And take your own time to make your own artistic endeavors. Art is wonderful. Art for the sake of art, one of the best things we can do. Art on somebody else's dime, when you forget the purpose of it, that's when things get really questionable. And we see ads like the $10 million Coca Cola ad, and you're like, the hell is going on?
Totally. And advertising is about generating revenue. If your ad isn't selling product or it isn't building a customer base, it is wasted revenue. It is not the investment that it's intended for. But Dr. J, thank you for an amazing year. I wish you a very Merry Christmas.
You too. Give my best to the kids and tell them Santa will be there soon.
They will. They already love Santa. They've watched far too many Santa things already. It's bonkers. But Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Dr. J, until next time, we'll see you in the new year. That's a wrap. Jake,
have a good holiday, y'all.
Over and out.